down that camera and strap in. It's time for another episode of TOGCHAT Live. Get ready for 60 minutes of wall-to-wall photography, including photo news and tips, along with your photography questions in real time, with answers from your host, Olympus Visionary Joe Edelman.
Hey, how you doing, gang? It's Wednesday, and that means it's time for our weekly photography chat. Thanks for joining me for the live YouTube edition of TOGCHAT. As you know, my mission is to help photographers like you to develop a solid understanding of the hows and whys behind great photography. As always, gang, before we get going, please do me a solid. Take a moment, tell your photography friends that we are streaming live on YouTube right now. I just shared the link right there in the chat window for you, or you can go ahead and click the button right down here, or you can type in the link, tog.chat/live. So go for it. Please let your friends know. And we've got people tuning in already from all over the world. So please, if you haven't done so already, check in, leave a comment, let me know you're here. Let me know where you're watching from. I got Randy down in North Carolina, Robert in Mexico. I've got William in Canada. I've got Lynn in New York, Beverly in Ohio. Wow, we got LGT Makes, Lawrence in Rugby, England, Ken in the UK too, Patrick in Paris. Really, really cool. Even got John right down the road in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. It's awesome to see all of you, okay? So also, please start posting some questions. Otherwise, like, why are you here? I'm not that funny, and I'm certainly not that good looking. So how can I help you? So far, I think I've only got 2 questions. That's it. So it's going to be a really short talk chat if you don't give me some topics to talk about, okay? And of course, I will do my best to answer those questions in the next 60 minutes. Couple quick pieces of business before we dive in tonight, okay? The first one is I want to talk to you briefly about Facebook. Most of you know that I have a Facebook group for a long time. So you ready? Because Joe's just going to like spin things around and confuse the heck out of everybody here. Here we go. That group used to be called the TOGCHAT group with Joe Edelman on Facebook. So it's gone through a little bit of a facelift, shall we say. Same group, same address as it was before, but it is now also not showing properly on my screen. So let's see if we can get you the whole thing here. How about if we do that, right? Let's try and get this squared away so you're going to see just what you're supposed to see. There it is. Good, okay? And, well, you know, it would help if Joe clicked the right button. Now you're seeing what you're supposed to be seeing. Okay, so sorry about that, gang. Anyway, same group, different name. It's now the I Shoot People Photographers group, which is actually what it used to be way back in the day. But bottom line, this is a group that is dedicated to photographing people. No candids, planned, purposely executed. In other words, they knew they were being photographed, shots of people. If you're not a member yet, I would love to have you there. But the real reason I'm bringing this all up tonight, in addition to kind of going back to its roots, those of you that are part of the group, you know that as soon as this COVID-19 thing started, I opened the group up to any kind of pictures at all. Just the goal being to get people to pick up their camera and shoot while this craziness was going on. So I was going to just go ahead and switch it back to people only. And I had a lot of people being like, wait, no, please don't do that. So I decided I'll start a second group. The second group, it's called Tog Knowledge, okay? Now, this group basically works with the same rules, except there's a couple differences. This group is open to any kind of photography, any kind of photography. It could be people. It could be bubbles like you see there. It could be anything. Every week, I'm going to go in and I'm going to pick my top 5 or top 10, depending on how many images get posted, image of the week. And the top image, the number 1 image of the week, will become the group cover. This is a shot from Eric, and I believe Eric's watching us here tonight. So congratulations, Eric. This was an amazing bubble shot. You guys know that I'm not a big fan of trends. Trends are boring. Trends mean everybody's doing it. That's why it's trending, which also means it's harder to stand out. It's harder to do it different. It's harder to be different, look different, and look unique. So when I heard, bubble image, it's kind of like, Eric, you nailed this one. It's amazing. It's a great shot. I love it. So each week, I will do a live stream in the group, pick my top 5 or top 10, give a little bit of feedback, and the top shot each week will become the group cover for the week. In the I Shoot People group, each week I will do a live check-in to do a review of the most recent images. So, hope to see you in both of those groups. If you're a member of my original group, the I Shoot People group, you are already pre-approved for the Tog Knowledge group. All you got to do is go and click on that join button and you will be in the group, okay? And then one other thing that I want to share with you folks is my webinars. If you have not attended one of my webinars yet, what the heck are you waiting for? I mean, really, seriously. So here's the link. I'm going to paste that in the chat window for you guys. So you have it. There it is. This Friday, social media for photographers. This is not just for photographers who are trying to make money. This is for any photographer who is interested in the following things. Sure, making money is helpful, but you may just be interested in building a following, or you may just be interested in making sure that your images look the best that they possibly can look online. So this webinar is part marketing and the philosophy and the approach to getting social media right, because it's actually a lot easier than you think it is. It really is. And it's also the technical part of how to properly process your images so that they look amazing on social media. That's that one. Then next week, a fun one for me at least, powerful color, how to make creative portraits with colored gels. Now you're probably thinking, oh great, he's gonna like stand there with a flash unit and stuff. No, I'm gonna take it a whole step further than that. In fact, I'll show you guys before we finish tonight how I actually do that webinar, where I can show you how to do lighting in real time via a webinar. So this powerful color one, we can divide it into 2 parts. The smaller part is all about kind of color theory and color selection. How do you know what colors to pick? How do you make the decisions? How do you match one color with another color? How do you know what's going to look good? And then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of how do you execute it. Now that we are using some lights and we're in a studio setting or shooting in somebody's living room, wherever you're shooting, how do you make those colors work together from a technical standpoint to get the rich, bold colors that you really want? Coming up after that, I've got understanding creativity, build your personal brand to build your photography business, the secret powers of raw files. I know there's some people here right now watching this talk chat that attended that one. I think they'll attest to it. There were quite a few people that had a wow moment during that webinar, okay? So I would encourage you guys, check them out. Another free one that's coming up on June 9th. It's a couple weeks down the road yet. File management. Create a system before it's way too late. Doyle, thank you so much for the super chat, man. I appreciate it. I really, really do. Thank you. So anyway, please make sure you check them out. More webinars coming, more topics, different topics. Keep an eye on that page. I'm going to post it in here one more time. Some of them are free. Some of them cost a little bit of money. The most expensive ones are $20. Most of them are $15. They run 60 to 90 minutes. They're recorded. You get a link afterwards where you can watch a replay for 48 hours, 2 days later, okay? So I hope to see some of you at my upcoming webinars, right? All right, so let's get into your questions. For those of you that were typing furiously, I saw some questions coming in. Thank you. For the rest of you, hey, I got time. Get those questions in here, right? We can work on them. So I had a question come in early from Charlie L., who is down in Central North Carolina, a place where I'm hoping to get to visit in August. I don't know. We'll see. I'm supposed to be down there for the Carolina Photo Expo, first or second week in August. So fingers crossed, we get that far. Just not sure that's going to happen. But Charlie's question, how many watt seconds is really required? So I like that phrasing. Really? Like, do I really need that much? Is really required for monolights in a studio the size of the one in my basement. So for those of you that have not watched that video, really, you haven't watched the video. So let's do this first. Let's get that video up here. Bear with me one second. I should have had YouTube open before we started. That was my bad. So I'll get that open. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to switch the screen over. When you go to my channel, if you missed the link here, I'm going to click on that little magnifying glass. Don't search up top because then you're searching all of YouTube. I'm going to click on that one and I'm going to type in Home Studio. And I'll share the link with you here, but just in case you're watching this and the chat window is not convenient, I'll copy the link address. Now you know how to get to it. Here is the video if you want to see what my home studio looks like. Charlie, my home studio is the shooting space where I shoot. It's 13 feet by 27 feet, give or take a couple of inches, okay? So back to your question, how many watt seconds is really required? I would answer you by saying that 300 watt seconds, since that's what you mentioned, that you have for the Godox MS300s, which for those of you that aren't familiar with that flash, I featured them in a talk chat a couple months back. They are AC-powered Godox strobes. They're completely interchangeable as far as the remotes and everything with like the 8200s, the 8400s, the 8600s, and all the speed lights. 300 watt seconds is more than enough. So in that studio right now, so you guys know that I gave up the studio that I had in the artist building. It was called the Cigar Factory. I gave that up because my lease was up for renewal. And the way the lockdown and everything is going, especially like here in Pennsylvania, we still are not legally, in my county, we are not allowed to do things like that in a studio. And even if they open it up tomorrow, I'm not so sure that I think it is appropriate yet to be doing that. So all that being said, I decided to give it up, not renew my lease. Maybe I'll go back in a while, who knows. But that being said, I have reestablished the studio downstairs, and I'm working with Godox AD200s, Charlie, which are 200 watt seconds. And I've done shoots in there already, plenty of shoots with the 8200s, and I can tell you they are more than enough. So if you've got 8300s, you've got plenty. If you're thinking about downsizing, you could work with speedlights in a space the size of the basement, 13 feet by 27 feet. It's really all a matter of your comfort levels with how much light you feel you need, what apertures you want to shoot at, what ISOs. So you know that I generally shoot at my base ISO when I'm working with strobes. So that's ISO 200 in the case of my cameras, my Olympus cameras. And I generally shoot at about f8 is kind of my target aperture in the studio, right? So I'm doing that with 200 watt second strobes. You could easily do that with 300 watt second strobes. You would have no problem whatsoever doing that. Okay. All right. Next question that I had here, scrolling on down. This is where everybody started typing. There we go. From Angel 1, can a cheap speed light or strobe light make your photos look professional? So, Angel, I have to answer the question the way you asked the question. And that is no, definitely not. But that's actually not the answer you're looking for. The reason why I answered it by saying no, definitely not, is because no piece of equipment, no camera, no light, no nothing, makes your photos look professional. It's not how it works. You, the photographer, make your photos look professional. So that being said, I'm going to make the assumption that you're maybe kind of newer to photography and that you are shooting mostly natural light at this point, looking to progress into better lighting. So I would kind of twist the answer to your question, and I would make it a statement that is this: having a speed light or a strobe light can help you create different kinds of lighting and different looks than what you are currently doing with natural light. I will forewarn you, once you start working with lighting, speed light, strobe, doesn't matter. If you are like most photographers, you will quickly find yourself, and when I say quickly, I mean provided that you are actively shooting and actively learning, okay? Meaning you got to pick up your camera frequently. Provided that you're doing that, you will quickly start to find yourself a little bit frustrated that you are somewhat limited in the capabilities of just one strobe, and you'll want more. Is that a reason to not do it? No. But do understand that what you should do if you're smart is not necessarily buy cheap. What you should do is you should do your research, put your credit cards away, and allow yourself to essentially kind of
Put down that camera.
sorry, my bad. Allow yourself to dream a little bit. And what I mean by that is kind of map out what is your perfect lighting system, right? That should be essentially what you want to do. And when I say map it out, I mean basically put it on paper. Like this is the system that I want, and be realistic, right? Once you've done that, though, save your money a little bit and buy one. Don't buy the whole system because that's expensive, but buy one. Learn how to use that one. After you've learned how to use that one, then go ahead and add a second one, and then a third, and so on, okay? The problem with buying cheap lighting, it's not a quality issue in terms of the picture. It's a quality issue in terms of its durability. How long is it going to last? How soon will it break? What are its ultimate capabilities? In other words, it will likely be limited. That's the problem with buying cheap. So I know that's not exactly what you asked me, but if I've missed something in what you're trying to sort out there, by all means, please type more, and I will try to help you out. Okay. Sven, is the upcoming Raw webinar and personal brand webinar the same as the previous ones? Name the same? Basically, it's the same outline. I'm doing them live. I'm not just replaying recorded ones, which some people do that. So, you know, me doing it live, there's a little bit of wiggle room. But yes, basically, it is the same topic. So if you've attended the Raw webinar or attended the personal branding webinar, then there's really no need that you would need to attend those again, unless you were being a bad student and goofing off and not paying attention. But yeah, no, I will be doing these, you know, over time more than once. Literally what I'm trying to do right now, gang, which I know a lot of you would be thrilled if I would just go do YouTube videos. You know, a YouTube video is 3 to 10 minutes. It's a very concise piece. Any of the folks that are here, and there's a bunch of people here that will chime in and tell you who have attended the webinars, these are 60 to 90 minutes of in-depth information. So it's a class. So it's my goal with the webinars, and I'm improving every time I do one. They're not perfect yet, but my goal has been to create an online learning experience that is as close to seeing me present in person as possible. So I'm using webinar technology, but I'm not presenting them like most people present webinars. They are, they're really very different in that sense. Everything that I'm doing, it's scripted, it's planned out, everything is coordinated and tied in. So there's none of, every webinar, I'm not gonna lie, every webinar that I've ever attended, and I will not name names. In fact, actually, I've never attended a photography webinar, but I've attended a lot of marketing webinars. And every webinar I've ever done, there's a person sitting there looking down at a laptop screen, and you know, so you're staring at their ceiling, right? And it's kind of like, okay, so I want to share my screen now, and then they click the button, and the screen pops up. It's like, oh wait, but that's the wrong slide. Let me back up the slides, and it's just it's annoying because you spend so much time just like listening to the person plod through the stuff. Okay. These are full-blown presentations. From the minute they start to the time that they end, they are full-blown presentations as if I was doing it in front of you in person. Especially for those of you, I know there's one or two of you here that attended the webinar that I did for Precision Camera last week, which was all about gels and lighting. And I'll show you guys. I'm going to show you guys an example. In fact, you know what? Let's do that now. I'll show you an example of how I'm able to teach lighting and color and all that cool stuff, and do it online from a webinar, right? So bear with me 1 second here. I'm going to turn off two little switches, and then I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to show you a setup. So what I would like to show all of you here, so this is a little sample of how I do it. I'm going to give you kind of a reconstruction of the image that is the cover image for tonight's talk chat. So this is the picture that you saw on the cover shot for tonight's Talk Chat. So we can look at this shot, and with a little bit of effort, we can tell that this was lit with what looks like a square softbox. We can see the square catch light in the model's eyes. It would appear that it was just one light on her. And you notice there's a little bit of red glow in the background. So if I wanted to teach you how I did that shot, I could tell you how I did the shot. Or the other option that I have is I can come over here and let's see here. I can switch to this screen. There we go. I just want to make sure I got all the right stuff on the screen for you guys. I do. And I can show you this piece of software here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close out this window. And I want to show you the lighting setup. So first of all, as I zoom in really close, you can see I've got my virtual model here in essentially the same pose as the model that you saw in the original shot. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn on this light, which is a 300 watt second honey badger is what this image was actually done with, okay? And now you can see, if you look up above me, like this way, there, okay? You can see I've essentially got the same lighting as what I had in the actual image, but I don't have the red accent, okay? So behind her, I've got this light with a red gel. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn that on. And now you can see up above me how I've got that little bit of red glow, okay? So now you can get a sense, I do have the reflector for just a little bit of fill. So now you can get a sense of the amount of space that this was done in, what the setup was that this was done with. And again, to go back to the original shot, there is the original shot, okay? So pretty cool stuff, huh? Yeah, so the webinar that's coming up, it's all about colored gels. And I've got some basic portrait lighting webinars, that type of stuff that are coming up in the near future. That's the software that they are being done with. So they're actually very, very detailed in the amount of information that I'm able to show you. And I can assure you that software, by the way, is Set Alight 3D. I can actually go ahead and figure out my exposures in that software and then go and replicate that in the studio, use the same settings, and the exposures are spot on. So this software is not just a toy to play with, it's an extremely accurate planning tool, okay? All right, so going back here to my questions. From David Crooks, what is your favorite zoom lens for portraits? I don't shoot a portrait with zooms. That's just my personal choice. I like primes. I zoom with my feet. Back in my full frame days, David, when I was, a Nikon guy, I would use the 70-200. That was back when I thought that the only way to take good pictures was by carrying huge, heavy stuff. And seriously, I'm not taking a pot shot, guys. I'm just being honest. Like, bigger was better. That was the attitude, right? So yeah, I used, Nikon camera, the 70-200. That was hands down my go-to. The reason why I never used the short zooms, in fact, I would see people come to my workshops all the time with their 24-70s, and they'd be shooting portraits. And suddenly I noticed that, my model's here, and the photographer's like here with their lens shooting a portrait. Finally, I'd be like, can I see what you're doing? Because I can tell that they've got their lens set at like 30 millimeter, right? And indeed, the model's got like this huge honker of a nose because they're shooting at the wrong perspective. So short zooms, horrible for portraits unless that's all you have. So I'm not saying you got to go spend money on it, but if that's all you have, you need to make sure you're racking that thing out short to medium telephoto, okay, focal length. But for me, I really prefer primes. They tend to be a little bit sharper. They tend to be a little bit faster. Being an Olympus guy, I love my 45 millimeter f1.2, the Pro lens. I can get great bokeh with it. It is tack sharp. And if I want a little bit more distance and a little bit more perceived compression, I saw there's a compression question coming up, so we'll talk about this. That's why I say perceived compression. Then the 75 millimeter 1.8 is, hands down, my favorite as far as that goes. David Crocs, zooms are for amateurs. I wouldn't go that far and say that zooms are for amateurs. It's just a matter of the way that I like to shoot. Part of the reason for me migrating to micro four thirds was that I was tired of carrying big, heavy gear. So, obviously with Olympus, I've got a lot of options. I mean, things like the 12 to 100, the 40 to 150, and the list goes on. But those are still bigger even as micro four thirds lenses. So the 45, which is a 90 millimeter focal length, by the way, for those of you that aren't four thirds users, that's a full frame equivalent. So I absolutely love that focal length. Okay. So let's see here. John, once things return to normal, what color backdrop would you recommend being flattering to a diverse crowd in a business formal environment? This will happen before the main event. Whew, well, John, that's a very politically correctly worded question. It depends. So let me kind of explain. You're thinking of the background based on, diverse crowd, which I assume you mean that there will be people of different. Oh my God. Sorry. David, I just read your comment. I'm going to ignore that comment so that I don't say something inappropriate and get myself in trouble. David was giving me the reason why he typed zoom lenses are for amateurs. Sorry. So much I want to say. John, the challenge with your question is I would ask, I'm sorry. I would say, number one, don't make it about skin color. I understand your thought process, and it's not a horrible thought process, but my first thought process is, how are these images being used? So it sounds like you're talking about some kind of an event. When you say business formal environment, so I'm going to guess it's kind of some kind of corporate, get together or gathering. But I'd like to know how the image is going to be used. The reason I want to know that first, if these images are going to go online and they're going to, maybe they're going to go on this company's website or on their social media, then if at all possible, let's face it, there will be a lot of value to try and incorporate part of the color or color scheme for that company's brand into the background. Unless, of course, it's like some weird color that everybody's just going to look horrible standing in front. Like, if their main color is orange, I don't know that I would shoot all these different skin tones in front of orange because, things are just going to go a little crazy if you do that, right? So, so that's kind of the challenge there, right? Is I would want to know a little bit of like, well, okay, what does their brand look like, and how do they intend to use them online? Like, is it just going to be a social thing? Is some of it going to go on their website? Does some of it potentially wind up in any kind of marketing or advertising down the road? That's the first question to ask. Then from there, you can start kind of looking at colors. I mean, bottom line here is we're talking we're talking kind of like, you want something neutral. Like, what's the right words, Joe? You want something neutral. So you could go with grays, you could go with whites. I wouldn't go with black, period. And that's got nothing to do with the diverse skin tones. That just got to the idea. Since you're talking business, there'll be somebody wearing darker suits. You're going to need additional lighting because you do want to separate your people from the background in that kind of a shot. So yeah, I would, if there's not kind of an obvious color scenario to build in based on the company's brand, then I would go neutrals and try to go with like whites, light grays, that type of thing. Keep it simple is the best thing to do. Focus on composing good shots, arranging the people nicely, making sure they all look happy and engaged and friendly and all that good stuff. And that's what's going to make your shots work. Okay. All right. Next up here. Frank, how do I use Photo Commander 16 for the first time? Frank, I'm going to be like straight up honest with you. I don't know what Photo Commander 16 is. So somebody wants to clue me in. Like, am I just having a brain fart moment and I should know what that is? Do me a favor, fill me in. I apologize. But I have a feeling it's something I'm supposed to know what it is. I'm not going to lie. But it's not clicking in right away. So Let's see here. And next up, scrolling down. Oh, Chuck gave me the reminder here. CPE, the Carolina Photo Expo. That's August 7th through the 11th. So again, fingers crossed on my end. I really hope that it happens, but we'll see. I know that for sure, at least my personal approach, pretty much any speaking engagements that come up, at least through the third quarter of this year and probably most of the fourth, I will not be flying to. I will drive to. Not ready to get on an airplane yet, but yeah, I mean, we'll see. So let's see here. Photo Mix Media. I've attended the same Notion webinars for free. Please convince me to attend your webinars. Photo Mix. Here's what I would tell you to do. Like honestly, do one of the free ones first. I mean, if you have been burned in the past, I sympathize with you because believe me, I have suffered through a lot of really just god awful, painful webinars. Okay. Pick one of the free ones like Understanding Creativity to Improve Your Photography or the File Management one, which is coming up. They're completely free. They're 60-minute webinars. I will guarantee you that you will come away from the webinar feeling like you should have paid for the webinar. I'm not saying you need to give me money later. I'm just saying, I guarantee you. If you like the way I do my videos, and again, there's folks here that have attended a few already, so they can attest to that. But if you like the way that I do my videos, imagine one of my videos that's 60 minutes long, but lots of information with the goal being to, energize you, excite you about the topic, and to make sure that you leave that webinar with having learned some things that you've never known before or never thought of before. That's the goal. And I'm proud to say that I think they're getting better, each one that I do. I mean, I'm really committed. I was pretty much of the mindset pretty early on that speaking engagements, which is a big part of how I make my income, were going to be shut down for this year. And it's pretty much looking that way. In fact, I received some inside information today, which I can't disclose completely yet, but I do know that a lot of what has been the norm in the photography world absolutely will not be the norm in the year 2020. Done. It's signed off on, period. So all that being said, I'm glad that I took those steps really early on to find the right technology to work with and, to how to approach it and to try and build out this platform. So I intend to keep working on it and keep improving it. But PhotoMix, the best thing I can tell you is try a free one first. I'd be the first to tell you, yeah, if you've had bad experiences before, don't spend money until you have a sense that you're going to get your money's worth out of it. Okay. All right. So let's see here. DP Psycho or D Psycho. I'll get that straight one of these days. I need to drop the light power on my AC powered monolight so I can bring it closer to soften the light without going above f8. I use a square square light box, excuse me. Any suggestions? So, so D Psycho, let me ask you a question first. Because I can throw an answer at you, but I have a feeling that may not help you. So the question is, why? Why do you want to bring that softbox closer? And when you type, before you type, do me a favor, please tell me what size is the softbox that we're talking about. Okay, so why do you want to bring it closer? And it would also help to tell me, maybe give me a sense of like how close you want to bring it, and how close you're using it now. So that, all right, 4 things. All right, why do you want to bring it closer? How close are you using it now? How close do you want it to be? And what's the size? You give me those 4 things and I can give you a solution. Okay? So I'll come back to that. Let's see. From Stefan. You've been doing some interviews recently. I was wondering if you could interview a photographer who is no longer living. Who would it be? Wow. It's interesting. No longer living, who would it be? That's tough. That is really tough. I think, because there's a couple that come to mind, and I know there's a couple that I'm probably forgetting, which is really bad too. I mean, I would love to be able to talk to Ansel Adams, about his thought process and how the zone system really came about. Just kind of like, what were the triggers? What went through in his head? How did he kind of develop just the whole concept in the first place? I would love to talk to people like, Snowden, to understand his experiences that he dealt with the people that he photographed and the things that he got to see. Robert Yusuf Karsh. There's so many greats. I think that it would be fascinating. Toil Hughes says Matthew Brady. I almost said Matthew Brady only for the sense of, like, I really want to be able to say to him, just kind of like, really, what were you thinking, carrying all that gear into the middle of the battlefield, right? So it's like, yeah, I think it would be so fascinating. But honestly, there's not one. Hopefully, if you took anything away from my interviews, and ironically, these last two interviews were two of my idols, so it was kind of more of a challenge just to not be a fanboy. But the thing that I enjoy talking to these people about the most, it's really to kind of learn through their experiences, and learn how they learned and learn what they learned. That's the part that I find fascinating. Again, it's hows and whys. My favorite, I like, as I get older, I'm regressing and I'm going backwards. I have a 5-year-old grandson, he'll turn 6 this year, who, he's still in that why phase. You tell him something, why? And we're kind of taught to get out of that why phase. Even now, like, he says why, and, other people are like, oh, just because. And I'm like, no, tell him, take the time. Let's have that conversation. Don't ever lose why. I'm finding now the older I get, I'm asking that question more and more and more, and I'm challenging. It's like all these things that I know, I frequently kind of try to challenge myself to say, well, why? Why does it have to be that way? Why is it that way? Why do I do it that way? Why do I accept that? Why is such an amazing thing? Because there's so much great knowledge in hearing someone else's why. But it only works if you can listen with an open mind. It only works if you are willing to put in the effort to try and have some empathy for a situation that is different than yours, and to try and learn from it, to try and imagine that experience. So I'm all about the why. So with that being said, honestly, it could be just about anybody. It really could. Let's see. Eric, have I used the round heads on the 8200s, and what do you think of them? I haven't. I have no need for them. Understand, Eric, you're not getting better light. You're just getting light that's round. So if we go back, so the bottom line, at the end of the day, they're kind of gimmicks, right? If you understand how the inverse square law works, right? As light leaves the light source, it spreads, right? Also, as light leaves the light source, it starts to round out, and it becomes round over time. Okay? Just does, right? So you could have a rectangular light, but the further away you get, the rounder it gets. So the fact of the matter is, I could take a Fresnel head on a speed light, and if I want a round gradient on a background, just back it up a little bit, and I can get a round gradient. Try it. It works. It's not hard. Like, it really works. So you can actually get a round gradient even by putting it super, super close to the background. Right? It depends on how bright you want it and how intense and all that kind of stuff. So so for me, there's really not a whole lot of reason to buy the round ones, because then, the MagMod stuff that I use doesn't fit properly. There's nothing for my workflow that a round head is going to benefit at all. But, camera manufacturers, lighting manufacturers, tripod manufacturers, you name it, softbox manufacturers, part of the way they stay in business is they have to keep generating new things. New isn't always better. New is more often than not, in the photography industry, new more often than not is simply different, not better, right? That's just a fact. So new doesn't mean you need it. It just means it's different, which means a smart purchase is going to be, does this difference make a real difference for me? I literally have yet to see any photographer, any YouTuber for that matter, say, oh my God, why is this taking so long? I will never use a rectangular light source again. Round, this is the only way to do lighting. Even Tony Northrup hasn't said that, right? Just hasn't. So, yeah, I mean, that's just, yeah, it's a gimmick. That's kind of my take on it. So, Chuck Kill, have I done any testing at 100 ISO on the OMD? Oh, yeah, man. 100, even 64 with the new EM1 Mark III, and it's absolutely fine. Realistically, it's no different than shooting at ISO 320 or ISO 400. So remember, for those of you that are maybe newbies to photography, just so you understand the context of this, the base ISO, what is base ISO? That's kind of like the default ISO setting on your camera. Understand that even though your camera has all these different ISO settings, fact, every digital camera made on the market actually, from a hardware standpoint, only has one ISO. The sensor in your camera only has one sensitivity, period. It's got X number of pixels with X amount of space between them, one sensitivity. Then we use software to be able to interpolate that data and increase or decrease ISOs. So basically, the software replicates all the other ISOs. So just like I can shoot with an Olympus at ISO 320, 400, 640, 800, 1000, 1200, 1600, etc. Yeah, I mean, dropping down to ISO 64 it's basically like 2 stops, right? Just under 2 stops. So it's not a big difference. I have done that in situations where it was convenient for me to make that change to be able to preserve an aperture or a shutter speed combination that I wanted to work at. Remember how the exposure triangle works. So, and which, by the way, gang, 2 of the webinars that I have coming up, the schedule for those will hit the website by the end of this week. One is all about the exposure triangle and how you really need to learn the exposure triangle and how you really need to understand it. Not basically saying, hey, you need to do it, but basically teaching it in a different way and actually forgetting the triangle, because honestly, I think a triangle is the wrong way to teach it. I just do. Everybody knows what the exposure triangle is. Well, it's shutter speed, aperture, and ISO. But yet most people can't tell me, hey, if I'm shooting at ISO 200 at 1/250th of a second at 5.6 and I want to shoot at f11, what shutter speed or what ISO do I need to shoot at? Most people can't do that in their head, which means that they don't actually understand the exposure triangle. Most of you couldn't come up with that. So I'm going to teach you a completely different way to do it in that webinar. And then I've got another webinar coming up that's all about depth of field and how depth of field really works, how you really use it as a tool. And again, the goal being to kind of change the way you think about depth of field so that you can actually use it to be more creative than what you're already doing. So those are 2 that are also coming up down the pike, okay? But yeah, I had no problems with it. Chuck, worked great, absolutely fine. Anthony D. Thomas, what percentage do you shoot tethered? Do you have a preference shooting tethered and why? I shoot tethered like 98% of the time in the studio. Yes, I have a preference. Of course, I shoot tethered. Simple reason being, it allows me to view my images larger. That way I don't miss mistakes. You can gladly say, Anthony, that my photography sucks. What you can never say is that I don't pay attention to detail, right? From a creative standpoint, obviously, it's completely subjective. But from a technical standpoint, sloppy hair, makeup, details, things like that, you will never see that in my pictures, ever. So shooting tethered gives me a much bigger image to look at. Also makes it easier for my makeup artist to see what's going on so that she can have input and help me prevent mistakes like that, etc. And of course, I use all Tether Tools gear. I'm a Tether Tools pro, so I use all their gear, and yeah, I love it. But tethering, totally way to go if you're a studio shooter, hands down. And depending on what you're shooting on location, even there's value to that. But studio work, yeah, tethering, completely the way to go. So let's see here. Franklin, am I going to be coming to Washington, D.C.? Only if, everything opens up safely. You just missed me. I was in Washington, D.C. right before the COVID mess. I was in Arlington. Did an event at District Camera in Arlington. Packed house. I mean, we had literally an overflow crowd that night. It was a blast. But yeah, I am pretty much teacher for hire, man. I go where they pay me to go. But literally in this year, 2020 calendar year, I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of photography events where you're going to have traveling photographers like myself showing up. I can tell you again, more announcements to come over the next few weeks from numerous companies. You're going to see very little in-person photography education happening this year. Look, bottom line, folks, and I don't want to dig into that well because it's very divisive, and I understand all sides of the argument. I really, really do. But the bottom line is this: the simple facts are, until we have a tried, tested, and proven vaccination for this virus, having gatherings of people is going to be extremely risky. And the thing you have to understand, regardless of whether you line up, and I don't want to, anybody goes political on me now, you're getting bounced out here in 2 seconds. Just chill, okay? I want to get out and get back to life as fast and as much as anybody else does. I lost my entire income when this happened. So I don't want to hear anybody whining about losing their income because I'm in the same boat. I'm with you. 100%, I'm with you. But think about it from the flip side. The camera stores that host the events, the camera companies that have to tell their employees, their sales reps, their tech reps, their ambassadors, go there and hold this event. Those companies are not going to be quick to assume the liability for sending their employees to an event or hosting an event for a camera store, and then people get sick and die. They're just not. So, you know, we can go around, you know, on the politics. We can go around on, you know, the financial needs, and the financial part of it sucks, folks. I get it. But, you know, there's also a reality there, and it's tough love, gang. But, you know, the lazy people, when this hit and that lost their income, sat back and said, this sucks. I lost my income. Some applied for unemployment, some applied for loan assistance, and that's great. That's what you should have done, right? Others said, this sucks. I've got to find another way to make income. I've got to find another way to make money, right? And, you know, you do what you do. But I don't see events coming back anytime soon. I just really don't. I hope they do. God, I wish they'd be back tomorrow. I would love to be on a plane tomorrow going someplace to teach. I mean, I was in the middle of doing that national tour with Olympus when this all happened. And I got shut down. So, yeah, I don't see it happening anytime soon, though. Gabrielle, I struggle with noticing details when taking people and portrait photos. I shot landscape and travel. Any tips for slowing down and noticing these? My family has no patience when I'm testing for the shoots. Well, actually, so you just answered the first part of your question yourself. As soon as you can, in other words, you know, when this craziness is done, try to work with people that aren't your family. That's step one. Step two is, Gabrielle, buy a mannequin. If you can afford a camera, you can afford a mannequin. Mannequins are $60, right? The mannequin that I use, I share all the time. Ask me in one of the Facebook groups, and I'll share the link for you. It's less than $70 for the mannequin. The great thing about mannequins is they don't talk trash. They can hold a pose forever. You don't have to feed them. They don't even need bathroom breaks. It's awesome, right? So the other thing, Gabrielle, which is really, really important to be able to slow down, is build yourself a system. The best photographers in the world, I don't care what they shoot, they have a system. Meaning, okay, I see this scene, I want to photograph this. So step one, I'm going to pick up my camera. Step two, I'm going to make the decision about my lens. Step three, I'm going to think through my exposure triangle, ISO, shutter speed, aperture. Step four, I'm going to do light placement if I'm in a studio, etc. They have kind of a set of steps. And that checklist, especially if you're photographing people like in a studio setting, that checklist keeps going all the way through to, okay, here's my first test shot. Now that I got the test shot, let me look for flyaway hairs. Let me look in person for flyaway hairs. Is there hair that I'm missing, etc.? Is the collar straight? Is the tie straight? The button's done? Are there any bunches on the shirts? You know, all that kind of stuff. That becomes part of a checklist. It's part of your system. And then you press the button. and then you check for that system, and you go back and you shoot again. Okay, but it's definitely kind of a practice thing. So, all right. Doyle Hughes, I've heard it said that the compression for the telephoto micro four thirds lens isn't comparable to that of a full frame lens. Have you heard this to be false? Doyle, there is no damn compression. That's the first thing. You all need to learn that. There's no compression. Compression is an optical illusion. Okay? So if you were to take an image of a scene with a 200 millimeter lens on one camera and a 24 millimeter lens on the other, and then take the 200 millimeter lens, use it as a reference point, okay, and crop the 24 millimeter shot all the way down to just the same field of view as the 200 millimeter, and then just blow it up, you will see very little, and I mean very little difference in this compression that everybody talks about. So the compression thing is more of an optical illusion, right? So yeah, it's nothing to stress about. You're a micro four thirds user. Enjoy it, love it. I've never heard of a photographer leaving micro four thirds because they couldn't get enough compression. So that's one of those things that it makes no sense to be wasting time on YouTube for, guys. Sorry, it's not a thing. And if you go, search that on YouTube, you'll find 75 different variations of people, arguing about how it works. So instead of listening to all the idiots on YouTube, me included, go do some research on physics. Simple physics. And there's your answer, right? Just is, okay? So let's see. Beverly, you probably went over this and previous videos, but how do you back up your photos and where? What do you use? I have gone over this, Beverly. So let me just show you here. I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my web browser. In the little magnifying glass on the YouTube channel, I'm going to type in the word backup. And I have a whole video here, photo backup, how to create an automated system, and I will share with you the link right here. Check that out. It goes into detail on everything that I do. Okay. Let's see. Franklin, I have 3 Neewer N300 strobe lights for my studio. Is that the right set for portrait studio photos? Or what do you use? I use Godox 8200s. There is no right. Right, guys, you can't ask me a question. Do I have the right lens? Do I have the right camera? Do I have the right flash? There is no right. The right is, what can you do with the gear you have? Does your gear allow you to do what you need it to do? If that's the case, then it's right. Seriously, it's not. There's no kind of clearinghouse of information that says, yes, if you want to shoot this is the right lens. Unless, of course, you listen to Tony Northrup. But other than that, there isn't. All right? Yeah. 3 Neewer strobes, knock yourself out, man. You can do some amazing lighting with 3 lights. You can do amazing lighting with 1 light. It's all a matter of what you want to be able to do. Seriously, that's the key, okay? When you ask questions like that, you're just begging to spend more money. That's really what you're doing. You're just begging to spend more money, because you can post a question like that in a Facebook group, you'll get 75 answers. Every one of those answers is going to cost you money. None of those answers, not a one, will make you a better photographer. Only you can do that. Only you can do that. Just saying, right? All right, so scrolling on down here. Patrick, I don't own a polarizing filter. Actually, neither do I, believe it or not. I generally use flash. Do you have some tips that can help minimize glare and light spill? It's all about light placement. Light's beautiful. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate the super chat. Thank you. No, it's honestly, it's about light placement. Light spill is flags, right? But yeah, I don't own a polarizing filter. I haven't probably in like 10 years. I just don't have a need. So yeah, it's simply about light placement. That's the key. Okay. So, all right, let's see here. Trevor, who cuts your hair? Because I'm like a shaggy dog. Won't let the missus near me with scissors. Well, I won't let the missus near me with scissors, but actually I've been doing my own hair. So the only thing I truly have, I've been doing my own hair. I've got it down to a pretty good science, but the one thing that I can't do myself, if you guys remember, I used to have like lines shaved in on the sides. That's not happening until I can go back to my hairstylist, but I've been doing my own hair. So I thought this was literally, I thought this was a life test, but right after the whole lockdown started, probably like the second week, my wife was like, you have to cut my hair. I'm like, oh, hell no. She's like, no, you have to cut my hair. I'm like, no, that is like the ultimate test. If I screw that up, she's like, I don't care. I don't care if you don't do a good job. I'm like, yeah, it's easy for you to say that you don't care if I don't do a good job. But if I do a bad job, I will never live it down. So true story. I spent a whole evening, literally a whole evening. I must have watched 40 YouTube videos on cutting hair. And then the next day, I don't drink. I should have, because I really could have used a couple shots of whiskey. But the next day after lunch, I cut her hair, and it actually turned out pretty well. Like, I was stoked. But yeah, but I thought, nah, that's like double jeopardy. You can't, as a guy, you can't do that. So, when your wife's telling you, oh, I don't care, I'm just desperate, right? Like, no, because if I mess it up, I'll never live it down. So yeah, and keep in mind, my wife's a college professor, so I knew she was going to be spending like the next couple of weeks in front of a camera, doing like Zoom meetings and stuff with her students. Are like, yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. So, all right, Alvin. By the way, Anthony, thank you so much for the super chat. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you. To freeze fast splashes like for product shoot, how do you know what is fast enough for a strobe that is also powerful enough? Honestly, Katala? That's an interesting name. Thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. Experimenting. So, Alvin, there's a couple ways to approach your question, right? Like, if you're really into the science behind strobes, okay, and you understand all the physics behind power and timing and all that, certainly, I mean, it can be figured out mathematically and through physics. Hopefully by now you know I'm not that guy. But some simple research that you can do, if you look up the spec information for your flash or for a flash that you are looking at purchasing, you will find pretty consistently, you'll find information. Matt, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. You will find information that tells you about flash duration. And understand that, especially with speed lights and some monolights, depending on how the design is, the flash duration is different depending upon what power. Generally, the flash duration is faster for a fuller power shot than it is for a lower power shot, generally, but not always. Back in the day, Stephanie, thank you. Okay. Back in the day, for instance, the Vivitar 283, when you managed to use the power really, really low, that was actually a much faster duration than if you used the full power. So it really depends on how the flash is designed. Beyond that, honestly, it's a little bit of experimenting. But if you do a little bit of research on flash durations for strobes, and then if you're talking about things like high-speed sync, you can also do, in the same technical information, you can find out how much is the power reduced if you're using a burst, that type of thing, and it will tell you. I will tell you this. Most of the high-speed things that people are shooting these days, like the milk drops and the water drops and throwing the fruit into water and all that kind of stuff, you don't actually need a super fast flash at all. I've done pictures, and you've seen me post some pictures in the past of like strawberries dropping into water, the splashing water and everything. They're tack sharp. Eric, thank you so much. I really appreciate the super chats. You guys are amazing. Thank you. Alvin, they were all done just with normal off-the-shelf strobes, nothing fancy at all. So most strobes today are going to have a flash duration of at least about 1/9,000th of a second, which is faster than most of your camera shutter speeds. So yeah, but go back to the specs. That's where you start your research. Okay. All right. So David, in my opinion, understanding light is maybe 10 times more important than whether you have a zoom or a prime lens. Oh yeah, David, I'd probably do you one better and say 100 times more important. So okay, so wait a minute, guys. I've got to jump ahead here. Like, hang on. So here, I will address this, but I'm not gonna lie. You guys know how I feel about this stuff. So, actually, Tina, I guess, didn't put the first comment up. Who put the first comment up? Tony. Just heard the news that Olympus is shutting down in South Korea. Care to comment? So first of all, I haven't heard that news. Tina, I don't know what you're referring to because I know you're in the United States. I don't know what you heard. Stop. Right? Just stop. I saw that a couple weeks ago. Tony Northrup did another, Nikon. All I saw was the cover art, with the financial charts going down. Like, people freaking stop. No camera company's going out of business. So just stop. Don't you understand that every time you people go into a public forum, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, whatever the hell it is, and you start that crap, because none of you have facts. None of you have facts. And you don't have context. You start that crap, and what you're doing is you're making cameras and lenses and flashes cost more money. You're punishing yourself and everybody else that's into photography. Stop. Nobody benefits if a company goes out of business. Let's look at some reality. Every one of these companies, just like you and me and every other company and restaurant and you name it, have lost a ton of money in the last 2 months. A ton. And I guarantee you that every company, just like every camera company, just like every other company. Tony, what news are we talking about here? We talking about photo blogs, Tony? Is that what we're talking about? That's not news. That's not news, and there's no damn journalism there. And here's the point. Let me finish, Tony, and I'll address your South Korea statement correctly. And I can only address it with a guess. But you wanted my comment, you're getting my comment. I don't care if it's on the news. You're not the news. When you purvey this camera company is struggling, this camera company is hurting, all you're doing is making it more expensive. Tony, 2 wrongs don't make a right. If one of the idiot photo blogs ran an article about it, every article they've run so far about Nikon being sold, Fuji being sold, Nikon going out of business, Olympus going out of business, how right have they been, folks? How correct have any of those blog articles been? Not one of them has been correct. How many of Tony Northrup's camera company failing predictions have come to light? Here we are in the middle of a crisis, and these companies are still existing. They're still there. So, what's the big deal? All you're doing is piling on stupid crap that costs money. Look, I'm not defending the companies. I'm defending my wallet, your wallet. I'm defending what's important about photography. So if that stuff matters to you, go to Tony Northrup's live stream and type your questions there and let him talk forever about how much every camera company sucks, except the one he's using this year, and how the rest are going to go out of business. But otherwise, shut up. Drop it. Leave it be. From now on, literally, I'm going to just block people that start this crap. It's ridiculous. Now, let's talk about some facts. There are going to be cutbacks. There will absolutely be cutbacks from camera companies. All of them. Nikon, Canon, Sony, Olympus. There's going to be layoffs. They have to trim back. If you understand how Olympus is organized, and I know nothing about Olympus South Korea, Olympus has multiple business units all around the world. There is Olympus Japan, which is the corporate Olympus. And then there are multiple business units all around the world who operate as independent business units. For many years, Olympus had a branch in South America. And they closed it because the politics in South America were making it impossible for them to sell cameras and actually be able to make a profit. Now, in the last year, they've reopened it in Mexico, and they're starting to rebuild that business unit. So, is it possible, given that South Korea is that close to Japan, that it would make sense for them to close down a business unit? Maybe it is. But what do you want me to comment on, Tony? Like, oh my God, they closed the business unit. What do you expect me to say? I'm an ambassador for the company. Once again, drop it. You're going to come to my chat. You're going to come to my live stream. Take that crap elsewhere. Go to Tony Northrup. Go to the Angry Photographer. Go deal with those idiots that just want to purvey BS that costs you money. I have no patience for it, period. Now, back to real questions. Pro capture, Trevor on the ollie is brilliant at capturing splish splash shots. Yeah, I mean, if you don't want to use strobes directly, Trevor, it works really, really well. Certainly, you need a little bit more light so that you're not shooting at higher ISOs. The pro capture is amazing. Period. For those of you that aren't Olympus shooters, what he's referring to is a feature that basically allows you to build a buffer. So you have to press the shutter. The camera starts recording images in the buffer. It's not recording them to the disk. Then when you depress the button the whole way, the camera takes those images it's already recorded, saves them to the disk, and it will continue recording beyond that point, save them to the disk, so that you're able to capture moments that you may not have properly anticipated because you're recording before and after, okay? So yeah, I mean, Trevor, Pro Capture, there's so much cool stuff that you can do with Pro Capture, but FN89. Do I have any DIY projects coming up? No, I don't, guys. I told you guys, honestly, I have spent, so again, a little photography business lesson, right? So all of your jobs just get canceled. What do? You have a choice, right? You can sit back and you can whine about it. You can take whatever you get on unemployment and small business loans and that type of thing. And I'm not faulting anybody that did that. You should have done that, right? That would be the smart thing. Or you say, okay, this is not going to cut it. For me, I took a longer term thinking approach. What things can I do to modify my business model so that, number one, I can make money now, today? Because I have not taken a single loan. I have not asked for forgiveness. I have not taken any loans. I started on day one of the lockdown, meaning the day that everything got canceled. I had been thinking about it for about 2 weeks prior to that. In fact, I was already starting to put together ideas for webinars and that back in the very beginning of March when I was down in Florida for my last event that I did. So you kind of look to see, where can I go? What can I do, et cetera. For me, it was learn to do these webinars, develop these webinars. So I've spent the last 8-9 weeks, whatever it is now, 10 weeks. I've lost track of how many weeks I'm in, learning this new technology, developing these webinars, putting together basically educational opportunities so that I can continue to educate. Again, I could very selfishly just go ahead and build out a bunch of YouTube videos. One, I'm not going to make any money off those YouTube videos because I don't make money off of YouTube. Two, they're all very, very short snippets. I wanted to do things that were more in depth, and that's why a lot of my webinars are kind of part 1, part 2, part 3, where you're expanding and you're learning. So it's really, that's been where my effort's been. The DIY stuff for me, to get back to your actual question, every DIY video I've ever done has been because I thought of something and basically, said, okay, let's build this. This is useful. I don't just kind of go around saying, so what can I build for DIY next? Unfortunately, I've kind of become known for DIY, and I appreciate that. But yeah, I don't have anything that's in the midst. A couple weeks ago, I showed you guys a DIY gobo concept and snoot concept. I showed you here, but it'll be a little while before I do a video on that because I need models to be able to shoot. So, okay. So let's see. Jason, Pentax is still around. Yep, they sure are. Okay. All right, let's see here. And Anthony, do I still use the DIY LED panels from back in the day? Yeah, I use them mostly for video at this point. They're still in the studio. Trying to think the last time you would have seen them, because I was using them actually right before the shutdown. They were in the background of a couple videos. David, I'm a Marvel guy all the way, and actually I don't pay attention to DC. See, I have to put this up. David, first of all, thank you for the super chat. Anthony, I'll come back to your question. I appreciate the super chat. Full disclosure, I'm not a big comic book guy, but if I pick DC, my son and daughter-in-law will totally disown me. So So anyway, Anthony, anyway, do I still use the DIY LED panels? Yeah, mainly for video stuff. They've appeared in a couple videos like earlier this year. But you know, I try not to get too locked in on any one kind of lighting. I like to mix it up. So that's kind of why, you know, they're not necessarily top of mind. But yeah, I mean, I believe in them every bit as much as I did, you know, when I made them. So let's see here. Franklin, I'm about to use an Arsenal for the next photo shoot. Do you know anything about this for the Nikon D5100 Arsenal? Is that one of those like wireless transmitter things? Honestly, I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't know even what that is. Frankie G, why don't you make money on YouTube? You don't make a lot of money on YouTube. If you think these guys doing YouTube are like making massive bucks because they're on YouTube, no. You make your money because of being on YouTube. Anybody that starts out to say, I want to be a full-time YouTuber is pretty stupid. I'm not going to lie. Because they have no clue how challenging that is and how much work that's going to take. Plus, you better have something really good, you know, to offer, okay? When I started YouTube in the first place, I started it for one reason and one reason only. So that people would find out about me and then hire me to teach them. That's it. Period. That's been my business model from the get-go. And I did a pretty damn good job of it. That's what I'm proud of. So I put a lot of effort into what I put on YouTube. But you'll notice, with the exception of the videos that I do for Olympus, which are only a few every year, but with the exception of those videos, my videos, unlike my buddy, I love this guy, but I'll make a comparison, like Manny Ortiz, okay? Manny's like, look at this lens, look at that lens. Here's why I like this format instead of this format. Everything's gear, everything's gear. And he's teaching from his experience, and that's awesome. I love the guy, right? But the problem of it is, well, Sony came out with a new camera, here it is, and here's what I think about this lens. 6 years from now, those videos are worthless. Ain't nobody watching those videos. 6 years from now, the inverse square law, still the inverse square law. 6 years from now, a one light lighting setup is still a one light lighting setup. 6 years from now, depth of field, still depth of field. So my videos are what YouTube refers to as what's called evergreen content. In other words, they'll be good forever. That's why my channel does so well without me dumping new tutorials in every week. My channel was basically proof of concept. It was to show people, hey, I'm a good teacher, and I'm a passionate teacher, and I want to teach for you. So, so it's all about your business model. But I assure you, not a lot of people making a ton of money on YouTube. The people that are making good money that are on YouTube are making money because of YouTube. They're making it through paid sponsorships. They're making it through paid advertising that they're doing, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, if any of you have ever gotten Squarespace after listening to Tony Northrup or Manny or any of them, they make a boatload of money off of that money that you're paying. So basically, when you sign up for Squarespace, you sign up and you're paying them. I don't do those kind of deals, okay? I will occasionally do an affiliate thing like the Amazon affiliates where you make a couple bucks. So, but yeah, not a lot of money. I make my money teaching. I'm an educator. That's what I make my money doing. So when I changed and did this full time, I kept a few of my commercial clients, which I still keep. So I am still a working professional photographer, but I make most of my income through teaching at this point. So that was the game plan. So let's see here. Trevor, must have been a huge clear out of the previous studio. Yeah. Actually, not that much. So, in fact, I have 2 trips left. So my lease is up the end of the month. 2 trips left. Just a desk and some paper background rolls. That's all that's left. So I've got almost all of it back here. Can't say I really found anything that I thought I lost because I didn't overfill that studio. I literally have only had it for a year, like 1 year. I mean, honestly, it sucks that I gave it up because I loved it. It was a great space. But at the end of the day, it's about business, and business is about making money. And so it really makes no sense for me to be paying, for a lease when I can't use the building. If I'm a guessing man, based on everything that's going on, the building will probably get opened up again to the public in the next couple of weeks. I would say the next few weeks. My county in Pennsylvania is still one of the few counties in the country that are locked down. We were like one of the hot spots. But I would expect in a couple of weeks, it'll probably open up. But even at that point, I don't know that I feel that it's a smart idea in the next month or 2 months to be doing shoots one-on-one and that kind of stuff. My makeup artist, Monet, who you've all seen in my videos and that, she has a compromised immune system, so I can't expect her to show up and do makeup. And I'm not just going to go out and replace her because of that, right? And my wife is also a high-risk person, so I'm not going to be rushing back into doing shoots. I will be kind of easing into a couple things that I'm looking at some ways that I can, kind of get a little bit going. Because believe me, I'm chomping at the bit to shoot, hands down. I'm just like anybody else is. I'm chomping at the bit to do it. But I want to be able to get to the other end of this crisis and be able to say I survived it. That's ultimately more important to me than being able to pick up my camera tomorrow. So it's kind of about finding the balance. That's the challenge, right? So, boy, I'm like way over time here. So there's a couple last minute questions. Let's see if I can get them all in here really quick. Craig, does the Olympus in-camera focus stacking more than make up for the 12-bit sensor or 14? Yeah. Craig, go to here. Let me find his name because I know he has a website. That's another one of those questions, Craig. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like it drives me nuts when I hear those questions because they're those kind of questions that are just they're built. It's a question that comes from all the stuff we hear online. It's like, well, you can't do this, you can't do that, and I'm not blaming you. I'm saying I want to show you a website for a photographer that I want you to check out. So this guy, just to really like blow your mind, okay? Here, in fact, I'll share it, but then I'm going to give you the link, right? This photographer I'm going to show you is not a full-time photographer, okay? Let's get rid of the screen. These are all shot with Olympus, by the way. Let's be really clear. These are all shot with Olympus. Chris McGinnis. He is actually an employee of Olympus. He is not a full-time photographer, okay? So, Craig, I'm going to share the link here from this, and then I'm going to tell you can answer your own question, okay? So I'll let you kind of figure it out from there as to whether or not you think it's good. But I can assure you it's not a micro four thirds thing or any of that kind of stuff. It's just not. So, okay? All right. So anyway, gang, that being said, thank you for the kind words, okay? On one hand, I apologize for the rant, sincerely, but I'm not going to lie. It just drives me nuts. So, Tony and Tina, I know you guys did not intend any harm, but I talk about this so much. So, I'm just begging all of you, understand that when that stuff gets going, when you see other YouTubers doing it, when you see the blogs doing it, they're not your friend. They're just not, right? Just that simple. So, if they were presenting facts and the facts were well documented, and if they had, a long history of being the first to know about this and, then we'd have a different conversation, but they're not. That's the thing. So, for me at least, I'm all about let's focus on photography. Craig, I'm not upset at you for your question at all. The reason why I wanted to show you his website, if I answer the question, just to be clear, Craig, I'm not upset for you for that question, but if I would have answered that question, I'm a guy that shoots portraits who's answering your question about focus stacking. If I were you, sincerely, I wouldn't put a whole lot of value in my answer because what does Joe know? He's an ambassador for the company, right? So that's why I wanted to show you Chris's stuff because Chris, he's actually also taught on Creative Live. I mean, the guy's work is like awesome. I would encourage you, if you're into that kind of stuff, follow him, check it out. But the only thing I can assure you, and again, don't take my word for it because I'm some guy on YouTube, like literally, don't take my word for it. But I can assure you, it's not an issue with Micro Four Third. Like, not a Richard. Yes, there's his IG handle for those of you that want to check it out. Chris's stuff is just, the guy is a god. Like, I am not worthy as far as I'm concerned. His stuff is just amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So, But it's worth pointing out the guy is not a full-time photographer. He does work for Olympus, but not as a photographer. His work is just to die for. So anyway, gang, thank you. Have a great week. Stay safe. I hope to see some of you at my social media webinar on Friday. Make sure that you guys check out the webinar schedule. Bunch of cool new stuff coming, and I hope to see you in my Facebook groups. So as always, gang, you know the drill. Please remember these words.
Thanks for watching another live episode of TOGCHAT. Now, pick up that camera and shoot something, because your best shot is your next shot. So keep learning, keep thinking, and keep shooting. Adios.